How is it going, everyone? It's Girl Monomi here, and today we are going to be talking about Danganronpa 2 on the Xbox Series X, the sequel to Trigger Happy Havoc. Now, Danganronpa 2, I will say it's not quite as good as the first game, but I still did enjoy my time with it, and I put over 30 hours into this game, playing through the actual main story, but also playing one of the side modes. One of the side modes is actually pretty decent. There's a few side modes, actually, and we'll talk about all of those. But let's talk about the main story first of all. In this Danganronpa game, you play as Hajime. And Hajime is basically going to Hope's Peak High Academy, just like in the first Danganronpa game. You know, the new students are going to Hope's Peak Academy. Just like that game, these are new students going to Hope's Peak Academy. But something fishy happens. Something really funky happens. When they get there, they get basically sent to an unexpected... They get sent on an unexpected field trip. They get sent to an island. Their entire group of them, all of the students, they get sent to an abandoned island with nobody on it, but still plenty of places to explore. And they're all stuck on this island, and it starts off making you think like this is going to be a really happy game instead of this time. You know, it's everyone's all nice to each other. They're like, one of the rules on this field trip is no killing or whatever. Of course, that was only how it started. It eventually does turn corrupt because Monokuma, the evil bear from the first game, shows up in this game again, and he jacks everything up, and it becomes a killing game again. So the only way you can survive this island is if you kill somebody and you get away with it, and then you would be able to, you know, graduate from Hope's Peak Academy and leave this island. So, similar plot from the same game. Similar stuff going on, but the characters aren't quite as interesting. I did not like the characters in this game as much as I did in the first game. The first game's characters were a lot more likable, a lot cooler, a lot more interesting. This game didn't quite have the same appeal when it came to the characters. I wasn't as dedicated to them, I wasn't as invested into them, so I wasn't, you know, that was one thing that kind of held me back in this game a little bit. I still liked them enough, obviously, to play through it, and I still enjoyed my time with the characters, but I definitely didn't enjoy it as much as I did in the first Danganronpa game. Now, one thing that I will say that they did right in this game is they made the exploration area a lot bigger. There's a lot more to explore in this game. So you have... Not only do you have one central island that you can walk around and you can go to like a nice little park on the island or whatever, but you also have 5 other islands all connected to the central island that you can go and explore, and they have a bunch of different areas to go to. You know, there's not a whole lot you can do in these different areas. They're all kind of like tied to the story, so you do have to visit them all, and they all have their important pieces, but, you know, this game is pretty railroady, just like the last Danganronpa is as well, but lots of places to explore, though. Lots of places to see for the first time, and some really cool areas. I really like this, you know, deserted island and these deserted, I guess, islands. Lots of cool areas to go here, and that was one of my favorite parts about this game, is just exploring. And it does do exploring a little bit different. So usually, you know, in the first Danganronpa, it would take you into this like first-person view, and you'd walk around the school. This one is more like a side-scroller, and you have to walk your character along to each of the locations that you want to go to while side-scrolling, and it's not too bad. I prefer the first-person view, personally, but this one isn't too bad either. Now, there are some areas that have the first-person view, but it's a lot more few and far in between in this game, so I do prefer that first-person mode more, so I do like the first game's version of this more, but still... not a bad way of doing it. It's still okay. I got used to it. Another thing that this game has during the main storyline is there's some collectibles that you can find. You can find some of these Monokuma dolls, or Monokuma, like they're like stuffed animals that you can find hidden around the island. You can do the same thing that you could in last Danganronpa. You can spend time with the characters, learn about them, give them gifts to try to get closer to them. And in this game, you collect hope fragments whenever you get close to them, instead of filling out report cards like you did in the last game. Another thing that you can do in this game is that there's actually some weird, I guess you could call it Tamagotchi style gameplay. So while you're running around on this island, you also have a little pet that you can raise in your like main menu. So if you go to your menu area, which is basically like your student handbook in the game. If you go to your menu, you can see this little pet, and you can actually raise this pet and take care of it and give the pet gifts and stuff like that. And you basically try to raise it to, its full levels or whatever. So it's really cool, actually. It's weird. It's a weird thing to have in this game, but I actually kind of liked it. So I'm not going to complain about it too much. I actually think it was a neat little idea to have this kind of like weird side Tamagotchi, pet thing going on. I did like it. And you never know which pet you're going to get. Like, one time I opened it and I just had like this weird pet snake, and I was just like, I didn't expect that to come out of that. So, but, and there's apparently a few of them, because I only saw a couple of them, and I didn't get to see all of the different animals that you can raise. So I'm kind of curious what the other ones are, but I'm not sure how much more time I'm going to put into this video game, since I've already spent so much time into it. Maybe later on in the future I will, but I'm kind of done with it for now. When a character does die in this story, not if, when a character does die in this story, you do have the investigations in this game, just like how you did in the first game. But I will say, they did some interesting stuff with the investigations this time. They tried to play with it a little bit and do some new things. They tied some motives into some interesting things, like they tied one of the motives into a video game. You have to play like this extra mini-game video game type thing to try to figure out who the killer is. That one was actually pretty cool. It looks like you're playing like a PS1 game. I like that one. And then there's another one that's like tied into a movie. So they did some interesting stuff with this one, with trying to kind of give you more clues and new ways to kind of figure out clues and stuff like that. So not too bad of some new ideas. I like those. The main story is all fine and dandy. I like the main story. The characters, while not as likable as Danganronpa 1, they're still likable, and they're still good enough to get you through the campaign. And the story does have a very satisfying ending, in my opinion. It has some twists and turns that I really like. The trial sequences go a little bit too crazy in this game. They kind of take some of the mini games and they go a bit too far out there with them, if I'm being honest. Like, I like the mini games enough in the first game. They did kind of give you too much information at once in the first game, but the minigames were still decent. And this one, it's not even that they give you too much information at once. This time, the minigames are really messy a lot of times. There's one minigame specifically that I really hated, where instead of like the trigger happy havoc mode in the first game, where you're like aiming your reticle and you're like shooting the contradictions in their statements, this one you have to actually like use blades and slash in the directions of the sentences, and it's a real pain in the butt, and I was not a big fan of that one. So that game mode, that mini game, I could have done without, personally, but still, that's a very small thing to complain about. I just kind of wish the minigames would have just been basically copy and pasted from the first game, because I think the first game had them pretty much perfect. The only minigame that was new that I actually liked was Deep Dive. The Deep Dive was actually pretty cool. I did like that one a lot. Now let's talk about those side game modes, shall we? Because you have a few side game modes. So the first one I'll talk about is you have this like Dangan Island life game. It's basically another mode where you are crafting, just like how in the first anniversary, the first game, Danganronpa Anniversary, it had this game mode too. When I played through it, it's basically just you living on the island and crafting things for one of your teachers, and you're crafting things for her, and you're basically getting to talk to the other students along the way. You can go on dates with the other students and stuff like that, and it's honestly not that great in this game. I probably am not going to play through it completely, because it's just kind of meh, if I'm being honest. But it's there if you want to talk to the characters more and get to know the students more. But I honestly just don't care enough about the students too much in this game. I don't care about the characters enough to really want to go talk to them more than I already have throughout the main campaign. So that one's kind of if I'm being honest. And I actually prefer the Anniversaries version of this, like island mode more. The Anniversary version had school mode, and I just think that school mode was a lot better than island mode. So the other game mode is a weird one. The other game mode is about one of the protagonists, Monomi. So Monomi is a rabbit magical girl who you meet when you are first on the island in the main story mode. And she's basically the opposite of Monokuma. Monokuma's the bad guy, Monomi is the good character. And there's a whole game mode dedicated to Monomi called Magical Girl Monomi. I don't know the full name. But it is its own game mode where you play as Monomi fighting a bunch of these bosses. And you fight, they're called Mono Beasts. And you have to fight these bosses, you have to fight a bunch of waves of enemies to get to the boss. And you have to basically fight a bunch of them to beat the game. And that's basically what it is. It's really weird because you wouldn't think that it would be in this visual novel style game, but it is. Graphically, it's very interesting what they decided to do. They decided to make it look like a PS1 game, which I don't mind. I love the PlayStation 1. I love the graphics of PlayStation 1, so I think that's kind of cool. And overall, it actually wasn't a bad game mode. You kind of play like a top-down version of the game as you're playing as Monomi, and you're running around fighting these waves, and as each wave goes by, you keep defeating enemies, and you keep building up your magic power, and as you do that, you're able to use your special ability, and eventually you'll come across the boss, beat the boss, and you'll finish that level, and then you will just go to the next one. And I like it. I like it quite a bit. And you do get to collect like items when you defeat enemies. You can collect different like upgrades for your character, so it's kind of like a mini RPG in some ways. So that's kind of cool. But it's actually not a bad game mode. There's not a whole lot of abilities or things that you can do in this. It's pretty straightforward. You're basically just making circles around the enemies, and then when you make a circle around the enemy, like different types of magic will pop up, like you can summon a tornado or something like that around the enemies and things like that. So it's nothing crazy. It's basically just you running around in circles over and over again and defeating enemies by drawing circles around them and summoning tornadoes. But you know what? It's actually a cool little mode. I actually liked it. It wasn't bad at all. I played through that one completely and beat it, and I really did enjoy it. If you play this game, I highly recommend you at least give it a chance, especially if you are a retro gamer like me and you like those retro games. It's actually pretty fun. Now, the last thing is they actually have an entire, I guess, light novel in this. You can actually read through the light novel. I didn't do this because I didn't really care about reading through the light novel for Danganronpa, but there is an option to read the light novel, which is actually kind of cool in a way for people that want to do that. I don't like it, so it's kind of weird because I don't like reading books on the screen, but I like visual novels, you know what I mean? It's kind of odd, but like I've never liked digital books. I've never just been a fan of that. If I'm going to read a book, I'd rather have a book in hand. If it's going to be words only, without voice acting or anything like that, I would rather just read a book, a straight up book, and then read some sort of digital version of a book. It's just kind of how I am. But for those people that do like digital books and stuff, this is actually a pretty nice little bonus for you. So you do get a light novel to go along with this game. Overall, you get your money's worth with this game. Even though it's not as good as the first game, it's still pretty darn good. It has some twists and turns that are really nice, and I think that if you are a fan of the first Danganronpa, you should definitely give this one a shot. That is going to be it for today's video, you guys. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe button down below. Go play Danganronpa. It is a fantastic series so far. I haven't played the third game yet. Maybe the third game will change my opinion on it. But no, I do like this game. I like these games. They're funny. The characters are cool, even though this one, the characters weren't as good. They're still pretty funny, and they're still cool to meet, at least for the story mode. And I think it's a series that you will enjoy if you are a fan of visual novels and doing the whole detective aspect of it and, trying to survive this killing game and everything. It's pretty fun, and I definitely think that you should check it out if you like visual novels. So I'll talk to you in the next one. You have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.